Okay, welcome guys. So this will be a review for the newly relaunched KBEAR Lark. So I believe I'll probably be the first person on YouTube doing this review. The thing here is that the KBEAR Lark was an innovative earphone that KBEAR tried to take on to at least please the technical audience, the guys that like technicalities on a budget. Like when I mean technical, I'm talking about sound that is a bit bright and a bit resolving. No, not just a bit, resolving for the price that they are making that earphone for. Hence they produced the KBEAR Lark. Now this particular earphone is priced at $30, probably $35 or 40 something dollars if you are buying it with an upgrade silver cable from KBEAR. Its official price is $30. Some discounts can get it down to $25 with the Black Friday discounts and all that. I'll make sure I leave link to the KBEAR store so you can get some discount. In fact, even KBEAR sends out some of these for free if you're lucky. The thing here is that this particular model is very unique in its sound signature, and not surprising because they didn't really go for the mass market appeal in its sound tuning. They went for a much more professional tuning for this model, and to a large extent, I respect that. I appreciate the effort that KBEAR put into producing this earphone. The thing here is that this particular model is a bright set, so I have to get that one out of the gate. It's a bright set. I got the green version with the mic silver cable. It comes with a default silver cable. You can see it has an ear hook. It's actually in the bag. It also comes with a KBEAR bag. It's a small bag. It's not really anything to go by. It's just a cheap bag. The thing here is that you get a very good packaging for what you are getting. Okay, you get a very good packaging, but the thing here is that for the price that you are paying, you are getting very good accessories. It comes with around 7 pair of tips. This is the white tips, black tips. I think the black tips are the base tips, but if you guys see, I am actually not using the stock tips. I'm using my own tips. This is a tip that kind of like it helps earphones give you brighter, much more clearer sound. So it's a little bit different from what is on the stock. If you see the hole, there is a bigger nozzle, so it gives a little bit of space for the driver to actually present sound very well. Most of the stock ear tips don't really have that hole in it. So if you see the stock ear tip, so take a look at the stock, it to a large extent it clogs up the nozzle of the earphone. So I prefer ear tips that have opening for the driver to actually present sound the way it should be, not really compromise on it. Now as for the stem is long enough. It's able to fit most people's ears. At least it fit my ears without an issue. It fit it perfectly. As for driving power, this earphone is it's not difficult. It's not too difficult, but it actually needs an amp. So it's a bit difficult to drive because on my LG V series phone, I couldn't really drive it to its best potential with the phone, and the LG V series phones have a lot of power compared to other phones. I actually had to put the LG phone on high impedance mode to actually get it to sound very good. But once I hooked up the earphone to an amp and a topping amp, it came alive. It really came alive, and it started sounding the best way it could sound. So now in terms of sound signature, like I said from the start, this is a very bright set. It's bright but not too bad. I will lay out the pros and cons for the earphone and whether you can deal with the pros and cons. So I'm going to lay out the pros and cons for you guys, and you guys will have to decide whether this earphone is for you from what I say. Now, it's a bright set, quite bright, but not too bad in its presentation. Now, it leans towards the treble and upper mids in its presentation, and has a bit of resolving capability, at least for the price. Now let's start out from the lowest frequency, which is the bass. The bass on this set is very linear. It is decent but not too powerful, not really at the level that I would want the bass to be, but it's okay. Now what it has going for it in the bass department is speed. The bass, as you guys can see, the dynamic driver here is massive, so the bass is very technical in terms of speed. It's very fast and articulate, so if you like fast bass, you will really like this earphone. I actually like the bass. Don't get me wrong, guys. The bass here is very, very textured and nice. It's not deep, or it's not too punchy, like for instance the blondes, or maybe even my favorite earphone of the year currently, which is the KBEAR, but it is very fast and is linear, so which means it rolls off the sub bass and doesn't really dig too deep. Now I used it to play movies. The problem with dynamic drivers that roll off bass or don't dig too deep is that they are not too good for movies generally. So I played an action movie with it, because it has a rolled off bass shelf. It plays the bass for movies right, but you can actually feel that there's something missing, because that there is this authority that movies do have that this particular set lacks, and it has to do with the tuning. But the bass is, at least the bass on this set really reminds me of I think the flagship, it's a balance armature from KZ. I think it's the AS16 that I had, because that had a very rolled off bass, but it's using amateurs for bass. Now this one is using a dynamic driver, but the way they tuned it, it's a little bit linear, but not bad by any stretch of the imagination. At least it's very good. It's linear and it's very technical. And the next one is the mids. The mids here is okay and resolving. It's very resolving in such a way that you hear vocals well. The only problem I have with the mids is that it's the lower mids is thin. It's thin sounding, and it has to do with the balanced armature in there. So the lower mids is thin sounding, the upper mids is emphasized, but it's peaky and presents that S region, which is the sibilance, much more clearly compared to my favorite earphone of the year, which is the EDX from KZ, which has a very smooth mid-range response. More on that when I do the comparison between the Lark and the KZ EDX. So the thing here is the mids is resolving, but the disadvantage with that is that you'll get sibilance in some frequency, especially in the upper mids. So if you don't like sibilance, maybe you have to throw in foams. I have foam tips, but I don't like foams. I threw on foams on this. I just didn't like the signatures of I think it started muffling some frequencies for me, and I wasn't really appreciating the sound signature, so I had to slap on the vocal tips that I use to at least, yes, it's still bright, it's still doing what it's doing, but at least because of the distance between the nozzle and this particular model of ear tip, that S region wasn't too hot as it is. So I would say make sure you you experiment with ear tips that you have lying around, or buy new ear tips to get the best fit for the KBEAR Lark. In terms of the treble is decently extended, but a little bit shrill at the top end, but it's quite nice. The treble has a metallic timbre to it, and that has to do with the balanced armature that is extending that upper frequency. The Listening to the treble on this, immediately I could just tell it's a balanced armature handling the treble, and it's very airy, but it has its own different tonality to it. It's neither good nor bad, because I personally like dynamic drivers sometimes handling treble, or maybe an electrostatic drivers handling treble, because of the way they resolve better. But balanced amateurs do well if they are tuned right, and this one doesn't sound any worse than most unbalanced tuned sets out there. So this is quite nice for what you are getting. It's detailed well enough. But one thing I would say, tips would really matter for this set, because it's a bright set. So if you make a wrong selection in your tips, you may not like the sound. I already know that there are two versions of this earphone. There is the retuned version. I think what I have here is the retuned version, I'm not sure. And there is the 4K peaky version. There's the one they call the 4K. I think they emphasize the upper mids on that set, so it became really uncomfortable for people to listen to for a long time. So that set was discontinued, and I think KBEAR now started shipping out the retuned version. Now I don't know whether what I have here is the retuned version or the 4K set, because I was one of the first to be sent this pair, so I don't know whether it's the original 4K version or the retuned version. But regardless, the set is quite nice. KZ has done very well, and if you want something a little bit different in its sound signature, you may have to check out the new KBEAR flagship Beryllium earphone that has a very dynamic driver like sound, with its punchy bass and detailed mids and highs, without much of that sibilance that you come to expect from a balanced armature set. So if you really want a very smooth response, you probably need to check out the KBEAR Believe. I'll make sure I leave a link to the KBEAR Believe on the KBEAR store, so you decide between the two earphones which one you would like. Am I recommending the KBEAR Lark? Yes, I'm recommending it, but just know that there are some flaws that you need to know. It's bright. The soundstage is not very wide, but it's decent. It's intimate, but still detailed and very much in your face in terms of the detail it's throwing at you. So if you know that going into it, you would really love this set. I'm going to keep the set, probably get a Bluetooth cable, a FiiO Bluetooth cable for it in the coming month or two, so that I can turn it into my wireless outdoor earphone, because at least that's what it could serve for me. So that's it, guys. That's a review for the KBEAR Lark. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please be sure to follow us here on our YouTube channel, subscribe, like our content, and I'm going to see you guys next time.